We've got a filing update in the legal battle between Jen and Stephanie, and it ends with a saga. But I think I also figured out the connection between Stephanie Jones and Ari Emanuel. In this filing, we learned that Stephanie isn't just looking at Jen's text messages between anything in regards to It Ends With Us, Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively. She's looking at her personal text messages between friends talking about her life, family talking about their medical history and their medical health concerns. The list goes on. Again, nothing she should be looking at, but she has all the access to in the world. It stated that instead they were widely distributed between Jones, her team, to Lively, the press, and untold others. How many people have her private text messages that have nothing to do with this legal case, the legal drama? Nothing. Among the stolen messages were messages between Abel and her long-term partner, her fiance, and her parents. Why is Stephanie looking at all of this information? This has nothing to do with this, but she's looking at it. That way she has more information to blackmail her or use against her in some kind of capacity, which we're going to get into because she's already doing that. This filing proves that neither Blake or Stephanie are a girl's girl. Nobody on Blake's team is a girl's girl, because why is it that you are having a woman that has nothing to do with this case and you want her to have her entire birth video on the docket? But now you want Jennifer's fertility struggles to be on the docket too. A sick, sick individual. They state that Stephanie had scoured Jen's phone for her text messages to see if there were any instances where she had been privately critiquing or gossiping about any of her former colleagues, and then shared it with those individuals. So when Jennifer reached out and was just like, just so you know, whatever she's telling you guys about me or what I've done, it's not true. I've enjoyed working with you both and wish you nothing but the best. And they replied, unfortunately, your company phone says otherwise. Stephanie also looked at privileged communications between Jen and her attorney, knowing full well that that was her attorney. So she's looking at private information between a client and their lawyer. Absolutely unacceptable. Then they go on to state that having scorched Abel's privacy and dignity, Jones started boasting internally that Abel's business would not last long. She stated that Stephanie disclosed at least some of Jen's private communications to Blake Lively no later than August 21st. Again, before the CRD complaint, before anything. This is maybe 2 weeks after the It Ends With Us premiere. Why is she showing her text messages? Because it was probably a planned, orchestrated thing, like we talked about. You're probably wondering, why would Stephanie do that to her own client? But here's the thing. Stephanie considered Justin's team a lower prestige client and devoted her attention to the bigger clients, such as Jeff Bezos and Tom Brady. Why should that ring a bell? Ari is actually really good friends with Lauren and Jeff and attended their wedding. So is it possible that Ari was talking to Jeff about all the drama that was going on and said, you need to fix this? He puts pressure on Stephanie, being like, hey, you're my PR rep, you better get this handled. And then she did what she does best. Meddling. Not only could it have been Ari's pressure on Stephanie, but it could have been Stephanie's own personal vendetta, because she did not want them to hire Melissa Nathan because she saw Melissa as a competitor. The reason they needed a PR expertise was because this was when Blake was demanding that Justin not be a part of the premiere, not be a part of the press with the cast. The whole cast had unfollowed him. And on top of it, Jennifer found out that a negative story was being shopped around to multiple outlets. They stated that Jennifer felt strongly that Melissa would be the right choice to help them with the situation. But Stephanie was unhappy with the recommendation because she saw Melissa as a competitor. And she had a history of bad-mouthing her to anyone that would listen, including Melissa's own clients. That says a lot about Stephanie. Stephanie was furious. She lashed out at Jennifer. She even pressured her to disparage Melissa as a demonstration of her loyalty. Sounds familiar. This part's very important because they stated that Justin's team had no interest in being a pawn in the office politics. And the chosen approach that they wanted to go forward with was non-confrontation. So when you see Justin's team not adding into the PR stunts and all that, it's because they want non-confrontation. And on top of it, they said, quote, had there been a smear campaign, which was later alleged by her and the Lively parties, Jones would undoubtedly have known about it in real time. So she would know about it. Does she know about it happening? No, because it's not happening. They also mentioned that Blake and Justin's team had negotiated an easy truce in which neither side would talk badly about the other. Well, Blake's team had already broken that truce. And Stephanie ended up breaking it as well. She did so in a direct violation of the Wayfarer's instructions to not talk to the press, given the truce with Blake Lively's team, because at the time, they didn't know that Blake had broken the truce, but they were still trying to adhere to the truce. They stated that when Wayfarer's leadership found out, they were livid, and so was Sony. And apparently, as this was happening, Leslie Sloan, Blake's PR rep, was planting negative stories about Baldoni. And anxious Sony executives began reaching out seeking clarity. So everyone at this point is on high alert. They stated that as a result of this malicious scheme, Jennifer's life has been turned upside down, her career and reputation destroyed. The backlash against the Wayfarer and Baldoni has been equally devastating. They stated that Abel lives in fear of what is to come, given the vast troves of personal data in the possession of this hostile and vengeful actor. She goes on that Abel has suffered enormous harm in her personal and professional life. This is a list of some of Jennifer's information, not all of it, that Stephanie has possession of. She has even more than just this, but this gives you an idea of everything she has in possession. Literally every aspect of Jennifer's life, she can see it now. This filing proves actual malice in regards to Stephanie Jones, because not only did she have no business going into the private text messages and then diving deeper into her personal life, whether it's, communications with her attorney, her parents, her fiance, her friends, that has nothing to do with any of this drama, the lawsuit, nothing. She was doing that way she had information to blackmail her and ruin her reputation. Hence why she went around to colleagues and were like, oh, did you hear Jennifer said this? Did she though? Because there's a lot of cutting, cherry picking, slicing and dicing. You can't just trust someone being like, oh, here's a text message, especially now with AI. I'm just going to throw that out there. And on top of it, I'm going to just say this. Stephanie is a really good example of just because she has people siding with her does not mean that she is in the right, doesn't mean she's not a bad person. It just means that she got people to side with her, probably out of guilt or pressure. Like they stated, she was going around calling people, crying and screaming at them, and then telling them that they had to disparage Melissa that way to prove their loyalty to Stephanie. Sound familiar? If you know, you know. Okay. Just because someone flips and is like, oh, never mind, Stephanie was so nice to me, doesn't mean Stephanie was actually so nice to them. It's that Stephanie told them something that made them zip it. You're either going to zip it or you're next. You're next. That's why people flip and they're just quiet and you see like everyone in Jones' work not saying anything about Stephanie. They don't want Stephanie's wrath, okay? That's why people flip. That's why people stay quiet, because they don't want her wrath. Doesn't mean that she's this angel that she's trying to make herself out to be. Doesn't mean that. I'm sure Jennifer has tons of text messages between her colleagues that prove that they're not on Stephanie's side. But how would it look if she posted those? It would look vindictive. It would also be like, you're crying about private text messages, but then you're doing it too. So I think the non-confrontation approach is the best option for all the parties when it comes to Wayfair, Jennifer, etc. Because if I've learned anything when it comes to big bullies is if you let them talk long enough, they'll tell on themselves. So just let them do the talking. As you can clearly see, Stephanie continues to ramp it up more and more and more. She has put herself in such a legal hot water. I don't know who's going to go to jail first. Stephanie, Blake, Ryan, who knows? Who are we kidding? They have enough money. They won't go to jail. Legal system. Yay. Oh, gosh. As always, guys, this is all alleged, so take it with a grain of salt. Let me know what you guys think and follow me for more.